In this video, we're going to introduce the different types of PU that we use for our bases. First off, the thinnest of our skin materials. You can see a sample here and some more material here. This is just 0.03 millimeters in thickness. So it's very light, it's very natural, almost undetectable on someone's scalp. Because it's such a thin material, V-looped hair is the only type of ventilation method that we can use. The maximum density that we can use with 0.03 millimeter skin is medium light. And it can't support hair longer than 14 inches. And because it's such a thin material, the wearer can't expect more than a month's use out of it. Next up, we have 0.06 millimeter transparent skin. And again, we have some samples here for you. You can see it's still very thin, very light, very natural. We normally use single split knots on this material, but we can use single flat knots on the back and sides if the wearer wants a flat effect to their hair. Why don't we use double split knots or double flat knots on 0.06 millimeter skin? Well, there are three reasons. One is that double split knots and double flat knots are bigger, so they're more obvious. Two is that with single knots, we use poly to seal them on the underside of the base, so the hair is secure and the knots won't loosen anyway. And three is that if we use double split knots or double flat knots, that means we need to make two holes in the base, and that will weaken it and it might break. As for hair density, it can support any kind of density, but just be aware, the heavier the density, the thicker the skin base needs to be. We also make 0.08 millimeter transparent skin. For this thickness, we can use normal injected hair, but if the thickness is over 0.12 millimeters, lift injected is possible. Now let's compare those three skin materials together. Now let's have a look at PU coating, which you can see here and here. We normally use PU coating on the edge of a base to strengthen it. PU coating is made by a layer of lace or mono that's then added to a layer of skin. It's much stronger and thicker than transparent skin, but also less natural. We normally use single split knots or single flat knots on PU coating, but because the material includes a layer of lace or mono, we could use double flat knots or double split knots if the client wants that. We also make PU with gauze. This is thin gauze with a thin layer of poly on it, and it can be used at the edge of a base or to make the whole base. We can make it with a thickness of 0.08 millimeters, and it is more natural than PU coating. We normally just use single split knots or single flat knots on PU with gauze, but because it has a layer of gauze in it, we can use double split knots or double flat knots if that's what the client wants. And this material can take any density. Then we have injected silicone. Its silk base feels very much like real skin, and the hair is silk injected, so it gives it a very realistic look, and this is the only ventilation method we can use on it. The base is very thick, and this is something your client should know about. This kind of hair system can support any hair density. And last but not least, we have anti-slip silicone. Anti-slip silicone is very rough. It can't be used across the whole base. What we do is we add it to another base material, usually on the front or the back or the sides. And it will secure the hairpiece in place and it will not slip easily. We can't add knots to silicone because if we do, the silicone will break. Silicone can break from just light pulling. And we can't use tape on silicone. If we did, it would just fall off. New Times Hair is a very professional and experienced company. And whatever your base design or base material requests are, we're here to assist you.